The big story today, Vice President Hamid Ansari has come in for flack from the BJP for attending a conference about the constitution. It's the conference which is not a problem, but the organization which was the host, which was behind organizing the entire event, which in the past has taken not only a distinct India stand, but has also got into trouble with Indian law, which is why now the BJP is asking whether the leader is legitimizing an anti-India organization.
In recent years, we have experienced emergence of trends and practices that dispute the well-established principle of civic nationalism and interposes a new and imaginary practice of cultural nationalism. It seeks to present an electoral majority in the guise of a religious majority and monopolize political power. It wants to distinguish citizens on the basis of their faith, give vent to intolerance, insinuate otherness, and promote disquiet and insecurity. Some of its recent manifestations are chilling and reflect poorly on our claim to be governed by rule of law.
अगर छत्तीसगढ़ में गॉडसे की पूजा की बात न की जाती, महात्मा गांधी को गालियां न दी जाती, हरिद्वार के अंदर तलवारें निकाल के मुसलमानों के कत्लेआम का नारा न लगाया जाता, उत्तर प्रदेश में योगी आदित्यनाथ 80%, 20% के बीच चुनाव की बात न करते और देश का प्रधानमंत्री सुनता रहता, एक लफ्ज नहीं बोलते, तो शायद हामिद अंसारी को यह बयान नहीं देना पड़ा।
पोलराइजेशन का सच बात यह है कि गांधी के हत्यारों के जय जयकार का, सच बात यह है कि औरतों के खिलाफ इतनी निम्न दर्जे की गंदी बातें इस देश में बोली जा रही हैं। मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि इसका प्रमाण दिख रहा है और इसका प्रमाण हर ओर दिख रहा है, लेकिन सरकार कदम नहीं उठाती है। आज नरसंहार का खुला आह्वान होता है, गांधी को खुली गालियां दी जाती हैं और सरकारें जो उत्तराखंड की सरकार है या केंद्र सरकार है, वो मुंह में दही जमा के बैठ जाती है।
ये कहते हैं कि इस देश में टॉलरेंस नहीं है, सहिष्णुता नहीं है। आप एक राष्ट्रद्रोही, एक राष्ट्र विरोधी संस्था के मंच से खड़े होकर के भारत को बदनाम करते हैं और उसके बाद कहते हैं जी इस देश में सहिष्णुता नहीं है। अपने आप विरोधाभासी बातें हैं। यही सज्जन जो है पीएफआई के मंच पे चले जाते हैं, भारत के खिलाफ दुष्प्रचार करते हैं।
Tom Vadakkan, spokesperson of the BJP, is joining us along with the Manasvi Thapar lawyer, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, senior fellow at the IPCS. Tom Vadakkan, the question being asked is, if the former vice president is participating in a conference, isn't that in keeping with the freedom of expression principle in our country?
The fact is, all freedom in this country is secure. And this bandwagon that Mr. Hamid Ansari is trying to build up is essentially a counter exercise, keeping in view the elections that are happening in India. And this is all basically directed towards creating that divide. The polarization exercise is being conducted, monitored, and mentored by the Congress party. In fact, Mr. Ansari's OSD is an official spokesman today of the Congress party. The linkages are clear. He's also being, I should say, I would dare say that he's also having a good look at the high offices of the President of India, trying to be a candidate by posing as the apostle of the minority. But the reality is, when there was the report that was given on minorities, where was Mr. Hamid Ansari? What was his reactions of those days? How much was done for the minority? These are questions, Mr. Hamid Ansari, you will have to answer, whichever office you want or aspire to be in. India is as secular as anybody. Let's... Yes.
Okay, Manasvi Thapar, a former vice president, a seasoned bureaucrat, and yet he gets to participate, or he agrees to participate in a conference which is organized by an organization like the IAMC. An IAMC which has lobbied against India in the past, IAMC which faces very serious charges in India. Why?
Yeah, definitely. I have an understanding that before going to any kind of platforms, you should do a due diligence, you should check it out. Having said that, on my personal opinion, you may have differences with the Prime Minister, you may have the differences how the country is functioning. Definitely on a foreign platform, which is obviously anti-India, you should not make such kind of statement. And having you holding a position or a constitutional former position as vice president, you should definitely not do that. But having said that, that does not deal with what the kind of the present government is doing against the crime against the women, against minority, the hate against the Gandhian ideology and Mahatma Gandhi in particular, that has been dead, and these kind of venom by the present government should also be stopped. You cannot erase the history of Mahatma Gandhi, and you should not do that. So that is what is the BJP is doing.
Let us not make broad brush statements. Do you have something specific to say? Because if we are talking about preserving the Indian Constitution, it is to imply that the former vice president is talking about the Indian Constitution being in danger, which is also fine. You have a democratic right to air your views, but it is the antecedents of the organization and their motivation, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, which is the biggest question today.
Thanks, Padmaja. See, I have a bit of a segue from what you brought up. The problem here always seems to be specifics. Mr. Hamid Ansari is one of those classic Nehruvian diplomats who can never get specific. He keeps talking in abstractions and generalizations. You know, a religious, electoral majority disguised as a religious majority. What does that even mean? If you read the articles he writes in the Hindu, his entire take is a Muslim is never responsible for anything. Be it on Palestine, be it on Iran, anything. Iran is never to blame, only America is to blame. Palestinians are never to blame, only Iran is ever to blame. I would urge all your viewers to read some of the stuff he wrote in the Hindu. Again, if you remember, he did an interview in another channel, I think last year, when he was pressed on specifics, he simply couldn't give an answer. He was contradicting himself and finally he had to walk out. I think, Padmaja, the most worrying aspect here is this man who was the Vice President of India has appeared on the invitation of the IAMC, which is actually booked under OAPA in India. I think we should all be worried when former constitutional authorities are actually collaborating and colluding with people who are under the pall of terror.
Answer that, Manasvi Thapar. And you know, it is one thing to say he should have done due diligence, but imagine the kind of image of India that is projected. The issue that Abhijit Iyer Mitra brought up of IAMC being booked under UAPA. Let me tell you why it was booked. The Tripura police, in the aftermath of the violence that happened in the state, identified 200 such handles and entities on Twitter and on social media who were actively fanning violence, and among them IAMC was one of the organizations. They were booked under UAPA, and then of 1 month after that, they declared that Indian Constitution is under threat and needs to be preserved. And a former Vice President is fronting it.
Yeah, IAMC is no one to give us any kind of certification of our threat or not. It is our responsibility as citizens to see how our country is going. Definitely, we may have different...
Sir, but the certification is not being given by the IAMC. The IAMC is a nobody as far as people are concerned. The certification is given by our own Vice President. He is the person the world will see. And the headlines will not be IAMC organizes conclave. The headline will be former Vice President says Constitution under threat, majoritarianism on the rise. Nobody cares about the IAMC. You didn't even possibly know that IAMC has been booked for Tripura violence.
Padmaja ji, that is why entire Twitter today is standing with Hamid Ansari, and no Indian have been in his support. There is difference of opinion with the kind of approach in a democracy would be, but that does not mean people are supporting Hamid Ansari for what speech he gave at IAMC. On the contrary, people are against it, and that is what India is all about. You may have difference of opinion. It is our internal India's issues, and we can deal with it. We don't need any foreign platform to deal with it.
Okay, nobody is standing with Hamid Ansari. The Congress refused to take any stand against him, Tom Vadakkan.
Well, I heard.
But Manasvi Thapar insists nobody is standing with Hamid Ansari because we all realize that our issues are our own.
I mean, I heard the spokesman Rashid Alvi say on behalf of the Congress that Mr. Alvi, this gentleman, the former Vice President, had to speak because of the situation that's existing. Now, if you're saying the Congress has not said anything, what is it saying to its spokesman? And what are the other leaders talking about? The point here is they are trying to create a polarization situation before the election. And Ansari is a bait for that exercise. And let me tell you, his ambition stretches to be a common candidate for the next presidential election. The game is clear. And I think he's putting on our nation as a bait for his political ambition.
Okay, I'm unfortunately out of time. Okay, Manasvi Thapar, quick response, then I'm out of time. Yes.
First of all, Tom Vadakkan ji, whatever he said about his political ambitions, first of all, Hamid Ansari is not a political mass leader. He can create a polarization, and people of Uttar Pradesh or any particular state are going to vote as per his particular speech at IAMC. He's not a political mass leader. On the contrary, this was his particular personal speech given at IAMC, which everyone has condemned, and no one is going to be polarized because of that. So let's not make it very political. It was his personal approach, what he has said.
Okay, it was his personal approach. We will see more about that. Like I said, I have to take a break right now, but we will be examining this case in closer detail in the next few hours. For the time being, thank you very much all gentlemen for joining me. Quick break.